Hello and welcome to MacFormat's weekly Apple Extravaganza. I'm Chris Finn.
I'm Matt Bolton.
And on this episode we talk about Apple buying things but not telling anyone.
Microsoft, but not Apple buying Microsoft.
Indeed, and this little bit of gadgetry here, whose identity we shall reveal when we get to it, basically. Let's start though with news in the world of Apple. Right, so I was off last week, so we didn't get a chance to talk about the Apple acquisition of Beats. So we're going to talk about it this week, but it has gained fresh relevancy.
You claim. Yeah, I didn't talk about it because it's not news yet.
Yeah. That's a really important thing. So it is rumoured that Apple is mulling the acquisition of Beats.
It's rumoured that they're mulling it.
Yes, the possibility hasn't begun to speculate, etc. Beats, obviously, the internet was awash and agog at this news.
It was many things.
Because it seems, on the surface, it seems like a mental acquisition. The brands seem very, very different. Apple would be spending a massive amount of money. The rumoured figure is $3.2 billion. And that's an order of magnitude bigger than anything it spent before, even on the acquisition of Next.
Which was its biggest acquisition.
Absolutely.
And people are judging that without inflation.
True. But bear in mind that the acquisition of Next was an obvious strategic acquisition. You could see why it was being done, or at least we can with hindsight, and possibly that will become true with Beats as well, should it come to pass. But the reason we're discussing it now is not just because I was on holiday last week, it's because it is claimed now that Apple might be able to buy Beats and nobody would ever know, or at least it wouldn't know for years, possibly decades. And the thinking behind this is that obviously if you make any sort of significant acquisition, you have to declare it through the Security Exchange Commission. Commission?
Yeah.
Not committee, that sounds very British. Commission sounds more American.
Yes.
So the SEC, basically, you have to declare big acquisitions through.
Yeah.
However, it is speculated that the iPhone business especially is so big, even just the iPhone business is so big, that even a $3.2 billion acquisition does not constitute a materially significant acquisition.
But would it not also have to go into its public finances for shareholders? It's a public company. Yes,
and indeed, the point. But I think those figures would be more delayed. The point is that if you go through the SEC, you have to file an 8K, is it called? You've got to file a particular form.
Okay.
For the acquisition and press release it. You've got to tell people you're doing this.
Right.
But they could not do that.
But what about Beats End? Would something not have to change or be filed on Beats End? For whom 3.2 billion would in fact be quite a lot of money.
Quite a lot of money.
Quite a large drop in a very small pond.
Which is a perfectly valid point. We don't know, basically. I don't know. I just read the story. I thought I'd talk about it. But it's an interesting thing because it gets Apple out of... It would get Apple out of one sticky bit of this rumoured acquisition, which is that if Apple acquires Beats, we don't know why they're doing it. If all they want is because they see that Beats is a very successful company and they think, we'll have that, which seems very un-Apple.
Yes.
But if they think that, then it means they can just do it and they don't have to rebrand it, they don't have to bring it into the fold, they can run it almost as an independent entity. And there is precedent for that. FileMaker, for example, is a wholly owned subsidiary of Apple.
Yes. Yeah. The thing is, one single precedent.
Matt is going to allow me that.
Increasingly...
anachronistic,
diminishing bit of software, bit of database software that they've even killed off the consumer end and is now just an obscure
SMB.
pro bit of
obscure.
Bit
Maybe
of
a little
software.
harsh, but
maybe a little harsh.
Yes,
but accurate. But it just doesn't like one precedent ever is not. It's not even really a precedent.
No. I can allow that, but it is an interesting idea that if Apple were to acquire it, and we still, there's all sorts of analysts claiming they know why Apple's doing this, for the streaming rights, for access to a new market.
Jimmy Iovine,
exactly.
And Dre.
And obviously Dre on the board, the world's first billionaire hip-hop artist, as he tweeted, which was notable. That's one of the things that really galvanised the thoughts that it was happening. Shrug. We just don't know. But I thought this little legal loophole was interesting. It means it gives Apple the chance to control the story rather than it being controlled. You remember when Apple launched the iPhone, they started filing through like the FCC. That's who I mean, I think,
yes,
isn't it?
Yeah.
On that day.
Yes.
Because they didn't want to put, because basically as soon as you put stuff in to be rubber stamped through these authorities, they're leaky as hell.
Yeah.
And Apple knew the news of the iPhone would get out, so it didn't. It waited until...
Well, I think the FCC filings are public, aren't they? That's the thing.
So you're saying that my characterising them as leaky as hell is actually litigious? If not inaccurate. But this way, at least Apple might be able to control the release of the news, the story, and we all know Apple likes to control its external story.
Yes, although a press release also seems a good way to do that, rather than just keeping it secret.
Anyway, we're now going to talk about the thing that you wanted to talk about,
yes,
that I also wanted to talk about, so that should be more fun.
But the thing is, it's quite clearly news from the world of tech. So the big tech release this week is, actually I don't know if it's been released this week, but it's been announced this week, is the Surface Pro 3 from Microsoft, which is definitely not news from the world of Apple.
But I was claiming it's news from the world of Apple because the way that Microsoft rather is positioning this, it seems very clear that they're acknowledging the supremacy of the iPad, and that what they're doing is they're setting up the Surface 3 as a laptop, essentially, which does a bit of tablety stuff rather than as a tablet solution.
I don't know if they would characterise it as acknowledging the supremacy of the iPad, but they did not announce anything with Surface RT, which was their iPad equivalent. If you like, being a altered, cut back version of the main operating system. Yeah. But they very much pitched Surface Pro 3 as a laptop competitor that is in the shape of a tablet, yes, rather than, as you say, an iPad equivalent. 12 inches, so vaguely the size of the rumoured iPad Pro. Yeah. The screen is interesting. It was 2160 by 1440, I think is right. So
it's a 3:2 aspect ratio, which is a really nice aspect ratio.
But it's like the iPhone.
Yeah, the original iPhone.
The original iPhone, which, if you recall, in our iPad Pro feature, was one of the things we suggested.
Because we did the maths and we worked out that actually that gives you a huge range of advantages.
Yes.
It makes all kinds of sense. And 16:9 has always been a hideous aspect ratio for a tablet.
Yes.
Because it's fine landscape. As soon as you hold a portrait, it just looks utterly preposterous, and the balance and the ergonomics are just horrible.
Yes.
And I think 3.2 is much, much nicer than the 4.3 aspect ratio that Apple uses. A little bit more widescreeny. It just feels a bit more roomy.
Yeah, okay.
I personally much prefer it.
I don't know if you noticed they even moved the start button, the equivalent of the home button, from the long edge, the 16 edge and the 16.9 one, round to the basically the same as Apple does on the short side, which is sort of telling. Yeah. But yeah, it's effectively a MacBook Air in a little chassis that's less than 9mm thick.
No, caveats.
And weighs 800 grams.
Yeah, it's about the same thickness as an iPad, an iPhone 5. I've seen little side-by-side shots, and it's basically the same thickness, which is very preposterously thin. Yeah. So, caveats, where I imagine you, as well as I, are about to say some incredibly flattering things about the Surface 3, or are some nice things about Microsoft and about this bit of hardware in particular.
I suppose whether it's credible or not depends on your pre-existing opinions.
But bear in mind, obviously, we still like Apple, don't worry. We still think Apple products are better, and that, in fact, obviously, I'd never buy a Surface 3, not least because it runs Windows, and that's just a whole bag of hurt. I'd much rather run OS 10 or indeed iOS. But it is a beautiful little bit of hardware, genuinely stunning hardware.
It's really nicely made. It looks fantastic, and price-wise, it's quite
competitive.
Really quite good. Yeah. It's really competitive. I saw loads of people from the Apple sphere point out, kind of do comparisons of it with the nearest MacBook Air, and going to go, it's $200 more expensive. And I'm thinking, well, it's thinner, lighter, has a much nicer screen. That only $200 more expensive. Yeah. Although you don't get a keyboard and trackpad.
Indeed.
For your $200 more expensive.
Whatever.
For your however much you've spent.
Yes. It was funny actually seeing the Apple ecosystem, the Apple chattering classes having the tables turned on them, because they were getting very defensive, in the same way as we traditionally see Windows people getting when Apple launches high-profile devices like the iPad or indeed the MacBook Air.
It really, really feels like a turnaround of how it was only 8 years ago. Yeah. Of a new Mac design comes out, and everyone from the Microsoft camp, everyone supportive of Microsoft goes, but you can just get this thing from Microsoft that's a few $100s cheaper, and you have people going, not that's as nicely made, not that has these exact features.
But one thing that was really interesting is that we think, it is rumoured, it is in fact reported by Bloomberg, that Microsoft was going to launch a second product in the same event, the Surface 3 Mini, which is based on Qualcomm's ARM processor, and that it didn't, and it stopped at the last minute from launching this, which is fascinating, I think.
If it's true.
If true, absolutely, but if true, that's fascinating. And because Microsoft utterly focused on the Surface Pro 3 being a laptop alike, essentially, that just happens to have some tablety features. It was a very, very clear messaging from them, rather than splitting it and talking about the Mini and going against the traditional tablet market.
It gave them time to go into things like the touch tweaked version of Photoshop that they had, and all that stuff. So, like, it was just such a stronger message for the Surface Pro 3. And
I do wonder if this is Satya Nadella, the new CEO, just going, look guys, let's just focus. Let's stop trying to be all things to all men. Let's have some clear messaging on this. And it's amazing to see the reaction from the industry, people that like we talk to, and the conversations we see happening. Everyone's much more positive about Microsoft just on the basis of that one.
Yeah, and I knew lots of people who were big fans of the Surface Pro original and the Surface Pro 2, because for what it did, it was quite a nice. I heard of people who had real problems with it from a software point of view, which is, but between the proper artist digitizer and a decent processor and graphics and things like that,
and just making nice
it an
hardware,
alright little portable games machine for Steam games rather than from an app store, and being nice hardware. Like, I know a lot of people who owned one were really big fans of it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to turn the spotlight, which is a nice pun, as will become apparent, on this piece of hardware. And the reason that Spotlight was a nice little pun is because this is a set of speakers, but it is solar powered, so light, you see.
So it's charging right now under our spotlights.
It is actually very slightly, you can't really see, you see that little red light there? If I turn it towards the light, this little red light will then slightly more.
Faint.
Yeah, but bear in mind it is designed to charge from sunlight, but
we don't have any of that.
We don't have any of that today. It's a very dull and horrible day outside. Normally, you and I are quite down on solar powered stuff.
Yes.
For a whole bunch of reasons. Photovoltaics are not especially efficient yet. A lot of people see these as green devices. A lot of people see these as green devices, but that's a slightly disingenuous thing to say, because most of the energy a device will use in its lifetime is used during the manufacture of it rather than during the running of it, so you're not actually saving that much. And there's obviously rare earth and minerals and all that sort of...
Yeah, obviously so nothing against solar power.
Yeah, solar power we love.
The portable solar power stuff we've seen has not worked.
Yeah, it's not worked particularly well. Also, we live in the UK.
Yes,
which,
so it's always a iffy.
Isn't good. So, but this one actually has got some things going for it. The first thing is it's a big panel.
Yeah.
You know, it's a decent sized solar panel, so it's collecting light reasonably quickly. It claims, and we haven't tested this yet because I only got this yesterday, it claims to charge the battery inside this fully in 5 hours.
With what sort of intensity of
sunlight?
Yes. At what time of day?
Yes. So it claims to charge in 5 hours and give you 8 hours of playback from the little speakers on the front.
A speaker. Okay, yeah. And it's Bluetooth, isn't it?
It's a Bluetooth speaker.
Does it have an aux in?
It does have an aux in. So, camera person, I'm using the gender neutral term there because we've got Kat from last week has joined us because Tom's not here. So at the back here, coming nice and tight, you'll see there is a 3.5mm micro input, and there's a button that you press to mark aux. And don't go away, Kat, because we also on the back here have a USB in for charging it itself from the mains or from your USB device or whatever you want, but also a USB out, and you press this button to activate that. And that's quite nice because what that is it allows you to charge your iPhone. You are now relieved. You'll be relieved to know that allows you to charge your iPhone or other USB device from this.
Yes. So do you get any longer playback if you use the aux in instead of Bluetooth?
I don't know. I'd imagine you do, but I don't know. But that itself is a quite nice touch, because this then is a little thing you can take with you to the beach, to the park, on camping.
You said it was waterproof, right? Oh God.
Yes! There's my
Well,
iPad
that's not
there.
you haven't tried playing. Like, this doesn't tell you anything.
Well, it's for effect. I love Cat's come around to take a nice close look at the water droplets on top of the speaker.
Are you under the impression that things that aren't waterproof, the water seeps into through the plastic?
By osmosis goes in. So it's also dust proof. No, I haven't got my sand with me. So it is indeed, as you say, splash proof.
The sand would actually be a better,
not waterproof. So water resistant, I should say, not waterproof.
Okay,
water resistant, dust resistant, shock resistant. You can drop it from 3.3 meters. I think was the figure I saw quoted. I'm not good. We will test that when we come to review it, but we won't do it right now. So it seems quite practical actually, and it's £75. As always with these things, I wish it was sort of a third cheaper than it actually is.
It's sort of the way it looks. I expected it to be a bit softer rubber. It's quite
hard.
It's quite solid.
It is quite solid.
These are almost good carry handles.
Well,
too small. Are you supposed to like attach a strap and?
Wonderfully, it does say I think it calls these carabiner ready handles.
Oh.
So you hook into the carabiners on your climbing gear.
It is quite heavy. Is the downside?
It's reasonably chunky.
But it's nice.
It looks okay.
Like
it's actually smaller than I expected it to be from photographs we've seen of it beforehand. Well done. So it tells us there it's a 1500 milliamp hour battery, which is reasonable.
We had a conversation yesterday in which Chris said he couldn't find the milliamp hourage anywhere to know its capacity.
I spent a long time researching it on the internet, and nobody was telling me anywhere how much it.
So it'll roughly give you a full iPhone charge.
About a full charge on an iPhone.
You can ever get it to full charge from the sun.
Yeah, and you'd never because.
Can you do it direct? Can you just leave your iPhone plugged in?
Very much doubt it because
you can't normally
because the performance of photovoltaics is very variable depending on if clouds go across the sun. Usually what happens is that electronics hate that kind of fluctuating level of power. So these things always
get huffy and
it's just like, no darling. They always charge an internal battery and then push that out. But it might be that it can relay that. It might be it could buffer it, I don't know.
Yep.
Sound-wise, we should probably talk about.
Oh yeah. Quickly. He sounded all right.
I mean,
we had a quick listen while we were setting up here.
It's just look at the size of the drivers, and you can see at £75 that they're having to make some compromises. So it's not. It's.
But
not,
then if you're going to be on
the
beach or whatever,
the problem is it's a little bit
camping.
thin. It doesn't have enough sort of thump and presence to sort of you're not going to get the party started with this, but you might be able to keep the party going.
Well, if you're on a big public campsite, maybe it's best that you can't. Maybe they're doing everyone a favour.
Sounds a little bit thin, but it's actually it's fine. It's not
Sounds okay.
Egregious. All right, so let us know what you think about all the stuff we just talked about. For example, let us know, what did I talk about again in the end? Oh, the Beats acquisition. Why is Apple buying Beats, basically? Let us know in the comments. The Microsoft Surface Pro 3. Go and check it out. If you're an Apple fan and you think that anything that Microsoft does is rubbish, I encourage you to go and check it out and
find out for yourself that it's rubbish.
and come back and let us know what you think of that. And of course, this little bad boy here, does solar even make sense in the UK, or is the weather just going to rain on your parade?
Don't forget that you can subscribe to our YouTube channel for all of our future videos. You can watch previous episodes of the Extravaganza by going to the bit of us doing last week in the middle, and that you can get a free trial to MacFormat's interactive iPad App Edition magazine on your iPad, as I just said.
Indeed.
From macformat.com/iPad.
That's it for this week. We'll see you next week. Just feel really depressed now. Oh, what's the point?
Welcome to the Extravaganza.